You know, some people may not want to see your underwear. I'm one of them. Now, despite that bit of advice from a man who is perhaps considered to be the coolest U.S. president ever, young men around the world continue to wear sagging pants. Influenced by artists and musicians like Travis Scott, a young Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Ice-T, and God rest his soul, Tupac Shakur. Now, that Barack Obama quote.
Okay, so I guess I was wrong. Tupac was doing it back in the 90s when I was growing up, right? So it's been going on for a long time, but then again, Tupac went to prison a couple of times, right? A lot of these rappers from California and New York, wherever they are from, they've gone to prison. And they themselves have seen some of these stuff in prison, I assume. So they come out dressing that way because that's how they've been dressing in prison. And it's a rebellious dress code. Let's continue.
It was taken from a 2008 MTV interview in which at that time the presidential candidate was being asked about his opinion on all the laws being passed against sagging pants. Seriously, in 2007, the town of Del Cambre, Louisiana passed an indecent exposure ordinance which prohibited intentionally wearing trousers in such a way as to show underwear. In March of 2008, the city of Hahira, Georgia passed a controversial clothing ordinance in the name of public safety that banned citizens from wearing pants that were worn below the waist or showed their undergarments. And not wanting to miss out on the free press, Pagedale, Missouri did the same thing. Now, some people considered this racial profiling. In particular, they felt it would target young male African Americans. On the other hand, if you take a step back and you look at the last few decades, you can see that sagging pants have been worn by men and youth. I think it's safe to say that there have been few men's fashion trends as vehemently opposed to as sagging trousers. Seriously, not even Crocs or men's Uggs met with billboards campaigning against them. Seriously, Dallas, Texas in 1997 had billboards popping up and asked young people to keep it a secret. In 2010, Brooklyn, New York did the same thing, buying up a bunch of billboards, trying to send a message to the youth that this is a style most people don't appreciate. And let's talk about the negative repercussions. In 2008, Flint, Michigan, the police chief, he basically said, if he sees anyone with sagging pants, he's going to arrest them. That being said, his lawyer probably spoke to him afterwards and realizing the danger there, they just went around issuing legal citations. And you may think celebrities and athletes are immune to the rules and repercussions. Not exactly. In 2010, we had a Japanese snowboarder who was banned from the opening ceremonies because he was dressed inappropriately. Loosened tie, shirt sticking out, and he had sagging pants. Now, your intentional beyond style is that your clothing speaks for you before you get a chance to open.
100%. Your clothing speaks for you. Your clothing speaks for you, right? If you want to wear a loose jeans and a nice button-down shirt, because a lot of people do it. You'll see people in a loose-fitted jeans and a nice button-down shirt and a jacket, and they go to a business meeting. You'll see this. It's the norm. But what we're seeing is it's the norm for the people that dress like that, but it's unbecoming of how you represent yourself. If you represent yourself like a thug, a gangster, a person that lives the alternative lifestyle in prison, it will display itself to people. People will see you and perceive that. Perception becomes reality. Let's continue.
Your mouth. So first up, let's get into the history of sagging pants and let's dispel one of the biggest myths out there. That myth is if your pants are sagging in prison or outside, that you are signaling your availability for anal sex. Now, for some of you guys out there, that may not be a bad thing. Hey, who am I to judge? But no, this rumor is not accurate. And most likely it was started by somebody that didn't like the idea of sagging pants and wanted to send a message to men that weren't interested in that they could be sending mixed signals. In any case, it does get one thing right, and that is that the sagging pants trend did originate in the prison system. As many of you guys know, hopefully from not too much experience, but belts are not allowed in most prisons. Now, the reason is pretty simple. It can be used as a weapon and it can be used to hang yourself. So when prisoners are issued clothes, they're giving something that approximately fits. And when I say approximately, it's probably never going to be too small, but it's almost always going to be a little bit too large. In some cases, very large. And if you lose the elastic or it doesn't have an elastic, all of a sudden you're wearing pants that are sagging because they're too big. So it's safe to say in a population of 1,000 men, we've probably got at least half of them wearing pants that sag on a regular basis. Now, for most people, the association of prison culture with their clothing is not a message they want to send.
He's trying to demystify the opinions of people like myself, right? He's trying to say, he's saying that it's not true. But I'm here to tell you that I know people that have explained, yes, what he's saying is true about not wearing belts and not being given belts and the clothes are a bit bigger. Yes, I understand that part. I do understand that part. However, he's not 100% accurate because, well, you can't be 100% accurate. However, what I'm saying is that because I know people that explain that it's a undertone inside a prison, right? It's an undertone inside a prison, and it is not supposed to be really known, right? So with that being said, let me share the screen again.
Rap culture, what we started to see is that people were reclaiming that. They're like, okay, yeah, you're going to pigeonhole me. You're going to throw me in prison. I'm going to bring that look out and I'm going to wear it on the streets. And straight up, I'll be honest, this is where I have to respect the style. They took something that could be viewed as a negative and they flipped it as something, you know what? I'm going to wear that with a badge of honor. Perhaps they did get thrown into prison and it wasn't their fault or it was the situation they were in. They didn't have a great lawyer and they're coming out and they're saying, you know what? I'm going to use this to make me stronger, and I'm going to send a message. I'm going to have a way of identifying myself with others that I have served my time. I know some of you guys are thinking like, who in their right mind would want to do this? Well, if that's your viewpoint, I respect it, but I encourage you to maybe expand your mind and do a little bit of reading on prison culture, gangs, and the way that they interact with the outside world. Me personally, I've never spent time in prison. I did get arrested twice, spent the night in jail twice, but I do have a number of family members on my dad's side that have spent 10 years locked up. And when you come out of a situation like that, you are a changed person. Oftentimes you have tattoos, you're just not the same person that went in. Some of these guys try to start over. Other ones fall back on old habits or look for connections that they had back in prison.
But listen, guys, regardless of dispelling any opinions or any rumor or any misunderstanding or misnomers, sagging pants is just not cool. Just not cool. A lot of us don't like seeing it. For some, it's okay. I've been told earlier on today that a buddy of mine said that when he puts his pants on and it sags, it's not because he wants it to be that way, his belt is not tight enough. I say, hey, get a belt that fits you and you won't have that problem. He says when he puts his pants on, he's not thinking about what someone may think. But again, that will violate freedom of expression. And freedom of expression goes hand in hand with freedom of speech. And if we violate that law, that right, there's a saying, give an inch. You give an inch, they'll take a mile. So certain rights, certain inalienable rights can't be impeded on. It will open the door for more rights to be extracted or brushed under the rug. And before you know it, all the rights that we were given to at least consider ourselves as free, even though we're not, they will take those rights away. So I understand what he's saying.
Case, sagging pants, for some, are a sign of the tribe, that you are part of the group. It's a reminder of where they came from. And to feed on this, again, throughout the 80s, throughout the 90s, oftentimes these were men from disadvantaged urban backgrounds. They embraced the sagging pants look with the idea that it would convey authenticity and street experience. By the 1990s, sagging pants had become a global.
Oh, wow. So I was way off. My apologies. Sagging pants was around from the 80s during LL Cool J, Run DMC, right? When I was a young teenager, right? 14, 15, 16, 17, right? So sagging pants been around for some time now. I was totally off. I guess I really underestimated the time frame of when sagging pants, because when I wore baggy pants, I didn't wear sagging pants. I wear baggy pants, right? Kind of like big, roomy. But I guess I wasn't paying much attention to how they were wearing their clothes hanging. Maybe I didn't even really concentrate on that as much because I overlooked that. But let's continue.
Phenomenon, especially in the underground, whenever you had hardcore people that were deep into the artist and wanted to emulate the style, the look, all of a sudden sagging pants are being brought to cities like Tokyo, Paris, London, and Berlin. What's the symbolism here? For some people who actually think through this, it is a symbol of counterculture, of resistance against authority. Again, you may not agree with it, but I think in some ways that's the point. In fact, the idea that politicians are putting together legislation that is then telling the police to come in and try to control you is exactly what a lot of these people think they're fighting against. That being said, I know it is a small majority that actually think through this and are trying to stick it to the man. The majority of people that are doing this, they are following a trend. They're trying to identify with a group. They're trying to have street credibility.
However you wrap this up, however you tie it up, it is still, however you tie this up, wrap it up, it's one of the worst display of attire or expression there is. And you know, it's crazy. I have spoken to some women that actually like seeing men just like that. I remember my first time expressing how I had a disdain for it. That was back in 2008, when I started really realizing what was going on. And this chick, she was like, I like it. I like seeing it. But then again, she was a fat chick, so she wasn't really getting any play like that. So that's the way she was able to get her satisfaction, because the guys weren't giving her that attention. So when she see the guys in their behind showing, it's a turn on for her. But even back then, it wasn't as bad as it is now. It was just sagging halfway, and they still wore belts. Now you see people wearing pants with no belts, and they're walking and using their hands to hold up their pants. Like, as you can see here, right? They're using their hands to hold up their pants. They're not in prison. They can simply get a belt and put around their waist. Let's continue.
If you know anything about urban clothing culture, you probably know that colors, that particular items, that particular brands, they all send signals of who you are, what you're associated with, and how much money you have. And that takes me to the next point. Let's talk about the companies exploiting this. Now, exploitation is probably a strong word. I'm just going to say these companies are taking advantage, or they did, of the trend, especially now, even in high fashion on runways. Anytime they can bring something in that has a great story, something that's counterculture, you know that the fashion crowd, especially if they can make money on it, is going to want to jump in. And when I say make money, yeah, some of these jeans can be thousands of dollars. So all that being said, why did society have such a backlash to this fashion, to this style trend? Part of it is, I would say, stereotypes. When we see a young man who's dark in color and he's dressed in a way that we associate with a thug, in these situations, what do human beings do? They get scared. And what do we do when we get scared? We make irrational judgments. All of a sudden, we start to think that everybody who's sporting this style is dangerous. Anyone that's sporting this style is up to no good. In my mind, this is a classic example of people confusing correlation with causation. I'm sure some of the politicians putting together these laws notice that sagging pants are correlated with crime rates. That doesn't mean that they're linked, though. In fact, there is more likely a third variable that they're not seeing. To make this example even more clear, have you ever noticed when it starts to rain that umbrellas are all over the place? Now, if I was from another planet, I might assume that umbrellas cause rain. But as you know, hopefully that's not the case. No, there is correlation between the two, but there is not a causation.
Is that sagging pants? Is that's way past having a sagging pants. Literally, the waist of the pants is literally down by his knees. If anything happens, he's just going to flip and tumble over. Tumble over.
Out there aren't going to like this style. And it's that human bias that I worry about for men that enjoy this style, is that they don't realize how many opportunities they're missing in life because they're not presenting themselves as someone that is going to come off as competent, someone that's capable, somebody that is smart, someone that knows how to get the job done and is going to stay out of trouble. A guy wearing sagging pants could be all of that and more. But unfortunately, a style choice is holding him back from becoming the man he knows himself to be.
It's just a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to for me, and for folks like me, younger and old, and I've been hearing a lot of young women saying that they're tired. They're tired of seeing. They're tired of seeing it, right?